King Prylar smirked, confident his genius alien brain could finally enslave the dim-witted humans. Little did the arrogant king know, he was about to get a lesson in human ingenuity that would leave his jaw on the floor. "Mr. Mason, the fate of the entire galaxy rests on your shoulders," the scaled councilman said grimly as he faced grizzled human war veteran Austin Mason in the Galactic Council chambers. Representatives from every major race shifted nervously in their seats. Even the reclusive Benzites had crawled out of hiding. Mason crossed his arms as the councilman continued gravely. "The brilliant but evil Benzite King Prylar has created a superweapon that can vaporize whole solar systems. Our spies say he plans to use it to conquer the galaxy, starting with his own people. We need you to sneak into his stronghold, find that weapon, and destroy it before he can use it. You'll have our support, but we must act fast and quiet to prevent a galactic war." The old battle-hardened human nodded curtly. Consider it done. Mason had faced insane odds before and won. This was just another impossible mission to check off the list. As he turned to head out, the Benzite elder grasped his arm with a clawed hand, yellow eyes boring into him. "Take heed, human. Prylar is a genius mastermind, the smartest being in the galaxy. His IQ is literally off the charts. He's a grandmaster at strategy and utterly merciless. He'll crush you like a bug if he discovers you." Mason met the alien's stare unflinchingly. "Smarts ain't everything, pal. Us humans have a few tricks up our sleeves. By the time I'm done, that so-called genius alien king will be shocked he's not as clever as he thinks. In fact, I reckon I'll have his ego so shattered he might just abdicate in shame." The councillors watched the lone human stride confidently out of the chambers. All their hopes, all their futures, now depended on Austin Mason doing the impossible one more time. Because if he failed, King Prylar and his doomsday weapon would put the entire galaxy on its knees. Never suspecting his reign would come crashing down around him, thanks to human ingenuity and grit. Austin powered up the Shadowhawk, its engines humming with barely contained power. The sleek black ship sliced through the void as it shot towards the Benzite system at faster-than-light speeds. During the journey, Austin pored over the intel the Galactic Council had provided. Classified files revealed the extent of King Prylar's twisted genius. The egomaniacal alien ruler had an IQ that was literally unmeasurable by standard Benzite tests. He had doctorates in physics, engineering, and half a dozen other fields. Austin scowled as he read how Prylar had seized power in a bloody coup a decade ago. The files showed Prylar's stronghold was defended by state-of-the-art automated defense systems and an army of fanatically loyal clone soldiers. Austin would be vastly outnumbered and outgunned. As the Shadowhawk dropped out of FTL on the fringes of Benzite space, a flashing light on the console caught Austin's eye. The ship's advanced sensors had picked up an unusual energy signature coming from Grecor 7, a barren moon orbiting the Benzite homeworld. Austin frowned. According to the intel, that moon was supposed to be uninhabited, but the energy readings suggested a massive power source, something far beyond what remote mining operations would require. Bingo. Had to be Prylar's secret base. "Knew that scaly bastard would hide out somewhere remote," Austin muttered. "Council intel ain't worth shit. Good thing I brought my own toys to this party." The grizzled human tapped a command into the console. The Shadowhawk shimmered and disappeared from view, its experimental cloaking device bending light around the ship's contours. Invisible to sensors and the naked eye, Austin guided the ship into a powered descent towards a jagged canyon on Grecor 7's surface. The ship settled on the rocky ground with a gentle thump. Austin grabbed his gear, a sleek disruptor rifle, an assortment of grenades and breaching charges, and a handheld computer loaded with slicer programs and hacking tools. Time to crash Prylar's party, he thought, as he disembarked into the thin, cold air. The veteran activated his cloaking device, shimmering out of view like a hazy mirage. Sensors in his suit started feeding tactical data to the HUD in his helmet, the layout of the terrain, ambient temperature and atmospheric composition, and most importantly the location of the base's perimeter defenses. Staying low, Austin crept towards the hidden stronghold. Hovering sentry drones buzzed overhead, sweeping the canyon with infrared cameras and motion detectors. Austin smirked. His cloak made him invisible to their scans. Next came a 30-foot-tall durasteel wall, studded with auto-turrets. The guns tracked back and forth, ready to reduce any intruder to bloody mist in seconds. Austin pulled out his computer and booted up a slicer program. His neural interface established a connection, and suddenly Austin could see the base's security systems laid out like a blueprint in his mind. A few quick mental commands, and he'd slipped a virus into the turret's targeting software. The guns kept panning around, but their IFF protocols now labeled everything as a friendly. Austin vaulted over the wall, landing cat-silent on the other side. The turrets didn't so much as twitch. As he made his way deeper into the base, Austin stared in horrified wonder. Prylar had hollowed out the entire moon, converting it into a sprawling underground weapons factory. Benzite soldiers marched through the halls, while scientists in black uniforms hustled between labs and testing ranges. Austin ducked into a side tunnel as a pair of guards approached. He held his breath, praying to forgotten human gods that his cloak would hold. The Benzites passed within inches of him, the reek of their sweat filling his helmet. "I hear Lord Prylar is ready to test the Nova cannon," one guard said. "About damn time. Now the galaxy will tremble before the might of the Benzite ascendancy."
"Should be a hell of a show," the other guard chuckled darkly. "Blowing up that abandoned mining colony will let the galaxy know we mean business. Once the cannon is fully operational, no one can stand against us. Not even those hairless ape things from Earth."
As the guards moved out of earshot, a cold sense of dread settled in Austin's gut. Prylar was going to test his planet-killing weapon within hours on an inhabited colony. The sick freak must have faked the intel about it being abandoned. Austin checked his mission clock. Less than 2 hours until the test. He had to shut this moon-sized gun down fast or millions would die. As he set off at a run towards the cannon's control center, Austin's mind raced. He'd need to do some serious sabotage to cripple this place and give himself an opening. Good thing I brought plenty of boom, he thought grimly. Time to show these alien assholes what one pissed-off human can do. Austin's fingers danced across his wrist computer, lines of code flashing across the small screen. With a final keystroke, he uploaded the virus into the Stronghold's systems. Alarms blared as lights flickered. Sirens wailed about reactor malfunctions and fire alerts in the East Wing. Panicked Benzite soldiers rushed past Austin's hiding spot, the thundering of their boots fading as they raced to contain the chaos. Heart pounding, Austin seized his chance. He sprinted down the now empty corridor toward the control room. The door slid open, and he burst inside. 5 Benzite scientists whirled around in shock. A tall one with the imperious sneer recovered first. "Intruder! Gua!" Austin lunged, his fist slamming into the Benzite's jaw. Bone crunched. The alien dropped like a sack of rocks. Austin spun, catching a second Benzite in the throat. The scientist gurgled and crumpled. In a blur, Austin took down the remaining Benzites with ruthless efficiency. A slow clap echoed through the room. Austin turned to see a Benzite in ornate black robes lounging in a hoverchair, a mocking smile on his face. "Impressive for a human," the alien said. "You must be the great Austin Mason. I am Zoltar, engineer of this glorious weapon. You've done well to make it this far, but your little quest ends here." Zoltar tapped a button, and blast doors sealed over the entrance. The Benzite genius steepled his fingers, smirking. "You see, human, this weapon is beyond your comprehension. The Nova cannon is the peak of technological achievement, born of my unparalleled intellect. No human mind could even begin to fathom its complexities." Austin ignored the taunts, his eyes flicking over the control panels. Zoltar was right, this tech was beyond cutting edge, but as he passed the alien symbols, he started to see the underlying logic, like deciphering a puzzle. There was something about the power relays, an inefficiency in how they shunted energy to the firing mechanisms. "You are wasting your time," Zoltar sneered. "I have alerted Lord Prylar to your intrusion. He will be here soon to witness your demise. Why don't you surrender now and spare yourself the humiliation?" "Shut it," Austin snapped, his mind racing as he analyzed the power distribution system. Yes, there. A critical flaw, so obvious he couldn't believe the arrogant Benzite had missed it. Austin's neural interface connected to the controls, and he dove into the code. Zoltar's eyes went wide as he realized what Austin was doing. No, impossible. You cannot... Austin's consciousness flew through the weapon systems, rerouting power, reversing polarities. Warning klaxons blared as the Nova cannon trembled. The acrid stench of burning circuit boards filled the air. Guess your weapon wasn't so advanced after all, Austin said as the room shook, bulkheads groaning. He lunged, his fist connecting with Zoltar's temple. The Benzite crumpled. Austin heaved him over a shoulder and sprinted for the exit. The world turned white as the Nova cannon exploded. The force of the blast hurled Austin and Zoltar down the corridor. Shrapnel whizzed past Austin's head. He rolled, shielding the unconscious Benzite with his body as fire blossomed and secondary detonations tore the stronghold apart. Ears ringing, Austin staggered to his feet amid the smoke and rubble. The control room was a twisted ruin. Tongues of flame danced across the wreckage of the once mighty weapon. Hefting Zoltar across his shoulders, Austin ran through the crumbling base, dodging falling debris. His heart pounded as he raced against time, leaping over gaps in the buckling floor, swerving around geysers of scalding steam. Austin dragged Zoltar's limp body up the Shadowhawk's ramp as the moon base collapsed in on itself behind them. The roar of the exploding reactor faded as the ship's hatch sealed shut with a hiss. Austin dumped the unconscious Benzite unceremoniously in the cargo hold, locking it down with a flick of a switch. No time to be gentle. He had to get off this rock. He vaulted into the cockpit, hands already flying over the controls. The engines whined as he pushed them to full power. The Shadowhawk shot into the sky like a bullet, the force slamming Austin back in his seat. He gritted his teeth as the ship clawed for altitude, the moon's surface receding below. "Come on, baby, hold together," he muttered, eyeing the temperature gauges edging into the red. Alarms blared as the hull shuddered, the Shadowhawk straining to escape the moon's gravity well. Austin's knuckles whitened on the stick. Just a little more. With a final heave, the ship broke free, the blue curve of the Benzite homeworld filling the view screen. Austin let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. He reached for the FTL controls, ready to put this whole mess behind him and get Zoltar back to the Council for interrogation. Suddenly, a proximity alert flashed on the console. Austin frowned. He tapped the sensor display, expecting to see the signature of a Benzite patrol ship coming to investigate the moon's destruction. But instead of the usual triangular fighter craft, the screen showed nothing. Just empty space where the sensors said a ship should be. Austin's eyes narrowed. He knew that trick. His fingers danced over the controls, feeding more power to the sensors. He cycled through different scanner modes, searching for any hint of what lay out there. There, a faint gravitational anomaly, so small most sensors would miss it. The Shadowhawk's advanced array had barely picked it up. Austin felt a chill run down his spine. A cloaked ship running silent, watching, waiting. A cold mechanized voice crackled over the comm, making Austin jump. "Attention, unknown vessel. This is Warlord Pryler of the Benzite Ascendancy. You have committed an act of war against our sovereign territory. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Austin's hand tightened on the stick. Pryler. That slimy bastard must have been monitoring the moon, waiting to see if his trap would catch the Council's pet human. Austin forced a cocky tone he didn't feel. "Pryler, you sneaky son of a bitch. Guess you found me, but don't think for a second I'm surrendering to you." Austin's jaw dropped as before his eyes, space rippled and twisted. One by one, a dozen, then 50, then 100 ships shimmered into existence, arranged in a perfect sphere around the Shadowhawk. Bristling with weapons, their hulls painted deep black, they hung in space like a swarm of hungry sharks. A fleet. A whole damn fleet hidden who knows how long, armed to the teeth with the same cloaking tech that had masked the base. "Impressive, is it not?" Pryler said, smug satisfaction oozing from every word. "The fools on the Council thought they could stop me with one ship and a single human. They underestimate the depths of my cunning. With this armada, I will bring the galaxy to its knees, starting with your precious Earth. Austin's mind raced. No way could he fight that many ships alone. He needed a plan, and fast. His eyes flicked over the readouts, looking for anything he could use. The fleet hung in a sphere, the ships evenly spaced. Pryla's flagship sat at the heart of the formation like a king on a throne. A crazy idea started to form. Austin's lips curled into a reckless grin. He knew it was suicide, knew it would likely get him killed, but if it worked, it might just give humanity a fighting chance. He gunned the Shadowhawk's engines, the ship leaping forward on a collision course with Pryla's flagship. Instantly the fleet opened fire, lances of plasma flashing past on all sides. Austin jinked and dodged, the inertial compensators straining to cancel out the brutal G-forces. Austin didn't answer. He was too busy weaving through the barrage, the Shadowhawk's hull growing hotter with every near miss. Sweat poured down his face as he pushed the ship to its limits. Almost there. At the last second, Austin wrenched the stick to the side. The Shadowhawk veered sharply, missing the flagship's bridge by mere meters. He hammered the reverse thrusters, and the ship flipped end for end, now rocketing backwards through the fleet. Before Pryla could react, Austin overrode the safeties on the Shadowhawk's reactor and ejected the fuel core, sending it hurtling into the heart of the Benzite formation. The explosion ripped through space like the fist of an angry god. A miniature sun bloomed, so bright it seared Austin's retinas even through the viewscreen's filter. The flagship vanished instantly, consumed by the nuclear inferno. Benzite ships cracked and split as the shockwave slammed into them, shattering hulls like brittle glass. The Shadowhawk shuddered as the blast washed over its shields. Alarms screamed, and acrid smoke filled the cockpit. Austin fought to keep the ship steady as the reactor's death throes hurled it end over end. Gradually the fireball dissipated, leaving only glowing embers and drifting wreckage. Austin coughed, blinking spots from his vision. He ran a shaking hand through his sweat-soaked hair. "Crazy bastard," he muttered, unsure if he was talking about Pryla or himself, probably both. Gingerly he tested the controls. By some miracle, the Shadowhawk was still in one piece. The shields were drained and the reactor was offline, but he had backup power and thrusters, enough to limp to safety. He allowed himself a small, tired smile. Pryla was gone, his grand ambitions turned to ash. The galaxy was safe for now. They'd all underestimated humanity, Austin most of all. Amazing what a lone man could do with guts, wits, and a stubborn refusal to quit. But the smile faded as he pulled up the long-range sensors, searching for any other surprises. Because out here, in the cold depths of space, there was always another threat lurking, another tyrant waiting to take Pryla's place. And Earth would need Austin Mason to stop them, no matter the odds, no matter the cost. The Council had given him an impossible mission. Good thing he specialized in the impossible. Wearily he plotted a course for home. Austin guided the Shadowhawk with deft precision, maneuvering the cloaked ship to dock on the underside of Pryla's looming flagship. The sleek vessel latched on like a high-tech remora, its presence undetectable to the flagship's sensors. As the unsuspecting Benzites scrambled to address the phantom crisis, Austin slipped out of the Shadowhawk and into a service airlock. The portal cycled open with a hiss, admitting him to the bowels of Pryla's vessel. The flagship's interior was a labyrinth of dimly lit corridors and thrumming power conduits. Strange acrid scents assaulted Austin's nostrils. He moved swiftly and silently, all senses alert for any sign of the crew. His neural enhancements overlaid his vision with a ghostly map of the ship's layout, pilfered from its own databanks. 2 lefts, a right, down a narrow access shaft. Austin navigated the alien vessel like a wraith, instinct and implants guiding him ever closer to the bridge. But as he slipped through a nondescript hatch, he found himself in a cavernous chamber dominated by a towering spire of technology, the ship's central computer core. The core pulsed with an emerald glow, streams of data cascading across its surface in an unending flow. In that instant, Austin knew this was the jackpot. The secrets of Pryla's fleet, his plans, his ambitions, All lay within that digital treasure trove. Wasting no time, Austin stepped to the core's main interface. His neural link engaged, and his consciousness expanded into the data stream. Information flooded his mind: fleet dispositions, weapon schematics, the minutiae of Prylar's grand design. He drank it in greedily, storing it all for later analysis. But as he probed deeper, a discordant chime echoed through the chamber. The core's lambent glow shifted to an angry crimson. A trap, some failsafe he'd triggered in his haste. "Well, well," a voice rang out, dripping with malice and grudging admiration. "The famed Austin Mason. I must admit I'm impressed you made it this far." Austin spun to see the hatch iris open, revealing the imperious form of Warlord Prylar himself. The Benzite's eyes glittered with cruel amusement. "But I'm afraid your little adventure ends here," Prylar continued. With a gesture he sealed the hatches. Hidden turrets emerged from the walls, humming with lethal potential. "Let us test the limits of human ingenuity, shall we?" The turret spat lances of searing light. Austin dove and rolled, feeling the heat of their passage. His pulse rifle leapt into his hands, barking defiantly. But for each turret he felled, two more took its place, walls reconfigured, attempting to box him in. Nozzles belched clouds of noxious gas. Austin's mind raced, analyzing the patterns of the traps, calculating vectors and probabilities. His body became a blur of precise motion, weaving through the deadly maze by split-second margins. Prylar watched the deadly dance, eyes widening fractionally as the human not only survived, but thrived against the gauntlet. He tapped a control, and the onslaught ceased. "Impressive indeed," the warlord mused, steepling his talons. "I may have misjudged your species, Mason. Perhaps there is more to humans than meets the eye." Austin stood warily, rifle still trained on Prylar. "Plenty you don't know about us." "Apparently so." Prylar's gaze sharpened. "But do not presume too much. You may have outfoxed my security, but you still must face me. And I assure you, I am no mere computer system to be hacked and manipulated." The warlord's form shimmered and vanished as his personal cloak engaged. The deck plates shuddered with heavy footfalls, circling left and right. Austin dropped into a combat crouch, senses straining. This was the real test, then. Prylar himself, besting him was the only way to end this. Man and alien, locked in a battle of wits and will aboard a ship of secrets, high above a world that held its breath for the outcome. In that moment, the fate of galaxies hung precariously between them. Austin smiled a mirthless smile. He wouldn't have it any other way. Austin burst onto the bridge, rifle at the ready. Prylar stood before the viewport, hands clasped behind his back, an amused glint in his eye. 6 hulking Benzite guards flanked him, bristling with armor and weaponry. "I must say, human, you've exceeded my expectations," Prylar said, turning to face Austin. "Your skills are wasted fighting for the Council's lost cause. Join me, and together we can bring order to the chaos of the galaxy. You'll have power and influence beyond your wildest dreams." Prylar's face darkened. "So be it, guards, eliminate this human filth." The Benzites surged forward, energy blades flaring to life. Austin met their charge head-on. He ducked under a whistling blade, driving his fist into a guard's throat. The Benzite gurgled and crumpled. Spinning, Austin caught another guard's arm and wrenched. The snap of bone drowned out by the alien's howl. A third guard leveled his blaster, but Austin was faster. His rifle barked twice, and the Benzite toppled, smoke rising from his ruined chest. In a blur of motion, Austin disarmed and disabled the remaining guards, their bodies littering the deck. He turned to Prylar, breathing hard. The warlord's eyes glittered with malice and grudging respect. "Impressive, human. You may be a match for my soldiers, but do not think you can best me." Prylar shed his outer robe, revealing a sleek black bodysuit ribbed with pulsing circuitry. He settled into a combat stance, talons extended. "I challenge you, Austin Mason. Prove your worth in single combat, your vaunted skills against my superior intellect and technology." Austin holstered his rifle and raised his fists, Challenge accepted. They clashed in the center of the bridge, a whirlwind of striking limbs and slashing claws. Prylar was fast, far faster than any Benzite Austin had fought before. His blows carried the weight of cybernetically enhanced muscles. But Austin was no stranger to fighting against the odds. He bobbed and weaved, letting his instincts guide him. When Prylar overextended, Austin capitalized, landing a devastating palm strike to the warlord's sternum. Prylar staggered back, surprise flickering across his features. He retaliated with a flurry of precision strikes, seeking vital points. Austin barely managed to deflect them, feeling the sting of close calls. They ranged back and forth across the bridge, smashing control panels and overturning consoles. Prylar grew increasingly frustrated as Austin continued to evade his most punishing blows. The human was adapting to his fighting style in real time, anticipating his moves. Snarling, Prylar unleashed a salvo of micro-missiles from launchers built into his gauntlets. Austin dove for cover as explosions rocked the bridge. Shrapnel tore at his skin, but he pushed through the pain. Austin pulled himself to his feet, wiping blood from his brow. His gaze fell on a sparking control panel, and a desperate plan took shape. As Prylar closed in for the killing blow, Austin lunged to the side, slamming his fist into the damaged panel. Electricity surged through his body, but he held on through sheer force of will. His neural interface linked with the ship's systems, and he poured every ounce of his concentration into the connection. "Impossible is what I do best," Austin gritted out, consciousness wavering as the feedback assaulted his mind. With a final, Herculean effort, he sent a massive power surge through the link. Prylar's suit whined and hissed, the advanced weaponry shorting out in a shower of sparks. The warlord toppled, his limbs going slack as the armor failed. Smoke rising from his scorched skin, Austin staggered to Prylar's prone form. The Benzite glared up at him, hatred and disbelief warring in his eyes. "How?" Prylar coughed, his voice ragged. "How could a mere human best me? I am Prylar, the greatest mind in the galaxy." Austin smiled grimly, the taste of blood on his tongue. "You made the same mistake they all do. You underestimated humanity. We don't quit, even when the odds are stacked against us. That's what makes us dangerous." He reached down and hauled Prylar to his feet, the warlord's armor now nothing more than dead weight. Austin's grip was iron as he marched his prisoner off the bridge, the first step in a long journey to bring the would-be conqueror to justice. But even as the flagship drifted, control lost with its master's defeat, Austin knew this was only the beginning. There would always be another tyrant waiting in the wings, another threat to the fragile peace he fought so hard to protect. And he would be ready for them. For as long as he drew breath, Austin Mason would stand against the darkness, a bastion of human courage and tenacity in an uncaring universe. The Galactic Council had given him an impossible mission. Good thing he specialized in the impossible. With a final, desperate surge of strength, Austin slammed Prylar to the deck, the warlord's armor sparking and sputtering. Prylar glared up at him, hatred burning in his eyes, but the fight had gone out of him. He was beaten, and he knew it. "It's over, Prylar," Austin growled, yanking the Benzite to his feet. "Your fleet is in ruins and your weapon is destroyed. You've lost." Prylar laughed, a bitter, broken sound. "You think you've won, human. You've merely delayed the inevitable. The Benzite ascendancy will rise again, stronger than ever. And when we do, your precious Earth will be the first to fall." Austin ignored the warlord's ranting, focusing instead on securing his prisoner. He activated his comlink, ready to report his success to the Council. But before he could utter a word, a deafening klaxon split the air. Red lights pulsed throughout the bridge as a robotic voice blared from hidden speakers. "Warning. Self-destruct sequence initiated. This vessel will detonate in T-5 minutes. Austin whirled to face Prylar, disbelief etched on his features. The Benzite's mocking laughter filled the air. "Did you really think I would allow myself to be captured so easily?" Prylar sneered. "I anticipated this possibility, human. Even in defeat, I will have my revenge. This ship is my tomb, and yours." Austin's mind raced, adrenaline surging through his veins. He had to find a way to stop the self-destruct, to save not only himself, but the vital intel he'd gathered. There was no time to waste. He lunged for the nearest console, his neural interface already reaching out, probing for a way into the ship's systems. Code streamed across his vision, the computer's security measures fighting him at every turn. Austin's fingers flew over the interface, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He could feel the ship's AI pushing back against his intrusion, trying to force him out. But he wouldn't let it win. Couldn't let it win. Deeper and deeper he dove into the system, peeling back layer after layer of encryption. His head pounded with the effort, sweat stinging his eyes. Just a little more. There, a vulnerability in the self-destruct protocols, a single line of rogue code that he could exploit. Austin seized upon it, his consciousness merging with the machine. His vision tunneled as he poured every ounce of his will into the link. The world fell away. There was only the code scrolling endlessly across the void. Austin's mind raced down branching paths of logic, desperately seeking the key sequence that would shut it all down. 30 seconds. Austin's heart hammered in his chest. He could feel the ship trembling around him, the reactor core building to a critical overload. Time seemed to slow to a crawl. 20 seconds. Almost there, just a few more lines. His thoughts blurred together, the boundaries between man and machine dissolving. With a final desperate command, Austin isolated the self-destruct protocol and severed its connection to the main computer. The deafening klaxon fell silent. The angry red lights faded. He'd done it. With literal seconds to spare, he'd shut down the self-destruct and saved them both from annihilation. Austin slumped against the console, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Pryler stared at him in stunned disbelief, all traces of arrogance wiped from his face. "Impossible," the warlord murmured. "No one has ever broken my fail-safes before. How did you do it?" Austin met Pryler's gaze, a grim smile touching his lips. "You underestimated us, Pryler. Underestimated me. That was your downfall." He hauled the shocked Benzite to his feet, snapping a pair of restraints around his wrists. This time Pryler didn't resist. He seemed almost shell-shocked, his grand designs left in ruins by a single, unassuming human. With his prisoner secured, Austin opened a channel to the Council. "This is Austin Mason, authorization code Delta Zeta 9. Mission accomplished. I have Pryler in custody and am ready for extraction." "Acknowledged, Agent Mason," came the crisp reply. "A shuttlecraft is en route to your position. Well done." As the link closed, Austin allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Against all odds, he'd completed the mission and dealt a crippling blow to the Benzite ascendancy. Pryler's reign of terror was over. But even as he savored the victory, Austin knew his work was far from finished. The data he'd pulled from Pryler's computer could hold the key to unraveling the warlord's entire operation. There were still loose ends to tie up, conspirators to root out. And beyond that, there would always be another threat waiting in the wings. Another would-be conqueror looking to subjugate the galaxy. As long as he drew breath, Austin would be there to stop them. He settled into the command chair to await the Council's arrival, his fingers already dancing over the console as he began to sift through the treasure trove of data. The secrets of Pryler's plans and technology were ripe for the picking, and he intended to lay them all bare. But for now, he could take a moment to reflect on a job well done, to appreciate the fact that once again, human ingenuity and determination had triumphed over insurmountable odds. Austin leaned back in the chair, a satisfied grin spreading across his face. All in a day's work for Earth's premier troubleshooter. The Council had given him an impossible mission. Good thing he specialized in the impossible. As the Council shuttle carrying Pryler vanished into the void, Austin turned his attention to the treasure trove of data extracted from the warlord's flagship. His eyes narrowed as he scrolled through the decrypted files, a growing sense of unease settling in his gut. The scope of Pryler's machinations was staggering. The Benzite had his talons in dozens of systems, secretly funneling weapons and resources to rebel factions on a scale that defied belief. Austin's fists clenched. Pryler hadn't just been planning an invasion, he'd been orchestrating a full-scale galactic insurgency. Names and locations flashed across the screen. Rebel leaders, supply caches, attack plans. A fragmentary picture began to emerge, one of a cancer eating away at the heart of galactic stability. Even with Pryler neutralized, his network of disciples and saboteurs remained a clear and present danger. Austin keyed the Shadowhawk's comm. "Mason to Council, we've got a problem." The image of Councillor Zorath, the wizened Arcturian who had first tasked Austin with stopping Pryler, flickered to life on the view screen. "Report, Agent Mason." "Pryler's plan went deeper than we thought," Austin said grimly. Data flowed from his neural link, transmitting across the encrypted channel. "He's got rebel groups primed to strike across the galaxy. Unless we act fast, we'll be putting out fires for years." Zorath's brow furrowed as he passed the information. "This is indeed troubling, but you've already done more than we could have hoped, Austin. Defeating Pryler was no small feat." "Defeating him was just the start," Austin countered. "We have to rip out the roots of his conspiracy, or it'll just keep growing back. I want your blessing to hunt down these rebel cells, choke off Prylar's support system at the source." The Arcturian considered for a long moment. "You would be operating with great autonomy, Austin, and great risk. Many of these factions are entrenched. Removing them will not be a simple matter." "Nothing worth doing ever is," Austin's voice hardened with resolve. "Then you have the Council's full approval and resources," Zorath said solemnly. "Assemble what team you require. You will have our support, but we must be subtle. We cannot let Pryler's arrest become a rallying cry for these dissidents." "Understood. Mason out." Austin allowed himself a tight smile as he shut off the comm. Pryler may have been a mastermind, but he'd underestimated human tenacity. Austin would be the warlord's worst nightmare, a loose end that refused to stay cut. The first step would be building his squad. Austin's mind raced as he considered the dossiers of elite agents from a dozen species, each with their own unique talents and motivations. This wasn't a job for Council regulars. He needed killers, spies, and rogues. The best of the worst. As the Shadowhawk knifed through the stars, Austin began assembling his team of galactic troubleshooters. He didn't know how deep Pryler's conspiracy truly ran, but he would damn well find out, and heaven help any rebel who got in his way. The Shadowhawk dropped out of warp on the fringes of the Axios system, little more than an anonymous gunmetal arrowhead against the starfield. On the bridge, Austin surveyed his new command crew with a critical eye. "Listen up, people," he barked, his voice cutting through the thrum of the ship's reactors. "You're here because you're the best at what you do. The Council's given us carte blanche to dismantle Pryler's rebel network, and that's exactly what we're going to do." His gaze swept over the assembled operatives, a motley assortment of aliens and misfits, each hand-picked for their unique skills. There was Rylek, the burly Cathari weapons specialist, absently polishing a plasma cannon that could liquefy tank armor. Beside him lounged Zephyr, the willowy sylph hacker, her fingers dancing across a holographic keyboard as she effortlessly sliced into local comm channels. Rounding out the team were Grix, the dour Medusan infiltrator, and Talon, the fierce raptor shock trooper. Killers and spies, one and all, but they were loyal, at least as loyal as their credit accounts. "Our first target is here on Axios Prime," Austin continued, pulling up a holographic display of the planet. "Rebel forces have seized control of a critical hypercom relay station. They're using it to coordinate attacks across the sector. We're going to take it back." Rylek grunted, a gleam in his yellow eyes as he hefted his cannon. "Smash and grab, I like it." The agents nodded, faces grim with determination. They knew the stakes. Failure here could leave a dozen systems vulnerable to rebel strikes. The Shadowhawk glided into the atmosphere, a blade in the night. In its wake, a shuttle detached, ferrying Austin's team to their insertion point on the outskirts of the enemy compound. As it touched down with a hiss of hydraulics, the operatives fanned out, weapons at the ready. Austin took point, his pulse rifle thrumming with barely contained power. His HUD flashed with telemetry from Zephyr's scans, painting a picture of the rebel defenses, automated turrets, pressure sensors, a garrison of at least 50 insurgents. Grix shimmered out of the shadows at Austin's side, his chameleonic skin shifting to match the moonlit terrain. "I've found a hole in their perimeter," he hissed, bioluminescent eyes gleaming. "An old drainage tunnel, lightly guarded." Austin nodded curtly. "Take Zephyr, get her to an access point. We'll hit them from multiple angles, keep them off balance." As the infiltrators vanished into the night, Austin keyed his comm. "Talon, Relic, we're the distraction. Time to bring the noise." Together they charged, a thunder of booted feet as they stormed the compound gates. Alarms blared and rebels shouted in a dozen languages. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air as the defenders opened fire. Austin dove into cover, his rifle barking in staccato bursts. Beside him, Relic braced his cannon, its barrel glowing cherry red as it spat a torrent of superheated death into the rebel ranks. "In the system," came the hacker's cool reply. Suddenly the compound's lights flickered and died. Turrets fell silent, their targeting systems offline. The rebels milled in confusion, momentarily thrown into disarray. It was all the opening Austin needed. He vaulted from cover, closing the distance in a blur of augmented speed. His rifle cracked like a whip, dropping rebels with ruthless efficiency. From the shadows, Talon and Grix struck like lightning, their blades finding vital arteries and nerve clusters with each surgically precise blow. The rebel defenses crumbled like sand before the tide. In minutes it was over. The compound lay silent, its garrison dead or scattered. Austin stood amid the carnage, his armor scored by plasma burns, his face grim with satisfaction. "Relay station is secure," Zephyr reported over the comm, her voice tinged with the barest hint of exhilaration. "Downloading their data cores now." "Well done, people," Austin said, allowing a note of pride to enter his voice. "But this is just the beginning. There's a lot more work to be done." As the team regrouped, tending to wounds and reloading spent power cells, Austin pulled up the intelligence from Pryla's flagship. A holographic star map bloomed to life before him, rebel staging areas glowing like angry red welts. His jaw set with determination. One down, but the cancer of Pryla's rebellion had spread far. To excise it would take blood, sweat, and no shortage of ammunition. But Austin wouldn't stop. Couldn't stop. Not until every last trace of Pryla's influence was burned from the galaxy. The Council had set him an impossible task. Time to remind the rebels why that was his specialty. As Austin and his team raced across the galaxy, chasing down the last remnants of Pryla's rebel network, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. On planet after planet, they found evidence of advanced benzite technology in the hands of the insurgents, weapons and equipment far beyond what Pryla's forces should have had access to. Zephyr, her fingers flying over a holographic interface as she sifted through a mountain of intercepted transmissions, let out an audible gasp. "Austin, you need to see this." She flicked a file onto the main view screen. It was a grainy video, obviously captured by a hidden camera. Two figures could be seen meeting in a shadowy room. One was a benzite rebel commander, his armor scorched from recent battles. The other was cloaked and hooded, but as he turned to face the camera, his features came into sharp focus. "Zortex," Austin growled, recognizing the council member instantly. "That traitorous son of a bitch." The audio crackled to life, snippets of conversation filtering through the static. "The shipment will be ready on time. Pryla sends his gratitude when the galaxy is ours." Relic slammed a meaty fist into the wall, leaving a sizable dent. "That council worm has been playing both sides, selling us out to Pryla and his scum." Austin's mind raced, the implications sinking in. Zortex's betrayal wasn't just a matter of greed or ambition. It struck at the very heart of the Galactic Council's legitimacy. If the rot ran this deep, the entire system could come crashing down. Over the next several days, Austin's team launched a series of lightning raids on key council facilities, striking hard and fast before Zortex's loyalists could cover their tracks. They battled through layers of automated defenses, dodged patrols of elite council guards, and sliced into heavily encrypted data vaults, each success bringing them one step closer to the truth. But Zortex was no fool. As Austin closed in, the council member began to push back, leveraging his influence and resources to stymie their progress. Austin's contacts within the council started going dark, witnesses recanted their statements, and critical evidence mysteriously vanished. "He's trying to bury this," Talon growled, nursing a blaster wound from their latest clash with Zortex's goons. "Knows we're getting too close." "Then we get closer," Austin replied grimly. "We don't stop until we have him dead to rights." The final piece of the puzzle fell into place on Nexus Prime, the bustling heart of council space. An encrypted message from one of Austin's few remaining moles within Zortex's inner circle revealed that the corrupt official was preparing to make his move, a public address before the full council where he would paint Austin's team as rogue agents, manipulating the narrative to conceal his own crimes. "It's now or never," Austin told his team as they prepared to infiltrate the council chambers. "We bring Zortex down today, or the whole damn galaxy burns." They slipped into the chambers just as Zortex took the podium, his silver tongue already weaving a tapestry of lies and misdirection. Austin watched from the shadows, his evidence queued up and ready to broadcast. "And so, esteemed councillors, it is with a heavy heart that I must call for the immediate arrest of Austin Mason and his collaborators," Zortex declared, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "Their reckless actions have sown chaos and discord across the galaxy, undermining the very principles of this august body." "Funny," Austin called out, stepping into the light. "I was about to say the same thing about you, Zortex." The chamber erupted into confused murmurs as Austin strode forward, his team fanning out behind him. Zortex's face flickered with momentary panic before settling into a mask of outraged indignation. "How dare you interrupt these proceedings with your baseless accusations?" the councillor blustered. "This is an outrage. Guards, remove this intruder at once." But the guards hesitated, looking to the other council members for guidance. In that moment of uncertainty, Austin pounced. "Baseless? Hardly. I have evidence that will shatter any doubts about your treachery, Zortex. Records of your secret meetings with Prylar's rebels, financial trails proving you funneled council resources to the enemy, witness testimony, communication logs. It's all here. You've been playing both sides, using your position to aid a madman's bid for power." Austin tapped a command, and the evidence began to scroll across every screen in the chamber. Zortex paled as his schemes were laid bare before his fellow council members. This is a fabrication," Zortex spluttered, sweat beading on his brow. "A trick. Mason is trying to deceive you all, to seize power for himself." "Is that so?" Austin asked mildly. "Then perhaps you'd care to explain this." He queued up the final damning piece of evidence, a hollow recording of Zortex himself, deep in conversation with a Benzite rebel commander. Their discussion of troop deployments, supply chains, and invasions plans left no room for doubt. As the recording ended, a stunned silence fell over the chamber. Zortex looked around wildly, seeking any shred of support, but found only disgust and accusation in the eyes of his peers. "Here seems the true deceiver stands before us," a grim-faced Arcturian councillor said. "Zortex, you have betrayed the trust of this council and the people we serve. There can be no mercy for such crimes." But even as the chamber erupted into a flurry of activity, calls for investigations, damage control, a desperate scramble to undo Zortex's schemes, Austin knew this was only the beginning. Prylar may have been defeated and his conspirators exposed, but the galaxy was still a dangerous place, full of new threats waiting to emerge from the shadows. And when they did, Austin and his team would be ready. For the sake of Earth, for the sake of every species that called the stars home, they would stand against the darkness, no matter the odds. The Council had set them an impossible task, but impossible was what they did best. In the aftermath of Zortex's downfall, the Galactic Council chambers buzzed with activity. Representatives from 100 worlds conferred urgently, working to undo the damage wrought by the traitors' schemes. Austin stood at the center of the storm, his team arrayed behind him as the Council lauded their heroic efforts. "The galaxy owes you a great debt, Austin Mason," Councillor Zorath intoned, his holographic image towering above the assembly. "Your bravery and tenacity have saved billions of lives and preserved the fragile peace we have worked so hard to build." Austin inclined his head, accepting the praise with quiet dignity. But even as the accolades washed over him, his mind raced with unanswered questions. Pryla's technology had been too advanced, too alien, to be of Benzite origin. And Zortex's final cryptic words hinted at an even greater mystery lurking in the shadows. As the council session adjourned, Austin pored over the data his team had retrieved from Pryla's shattered empire. Fragments of ancient texts, scraps of long-lost star charts, all pointing to a single chilling conclusion. "The progenitors," Austin murmured, the name tasting like ashes on his tongue, "an ancient race that once ruled the galaxy with an iron fist. Their technology was beyond anything we've ever seen. They enslaved entire species, bent the very fabric of space and time to their will." Austin nodded grimly. "We can't let that happen. The galaxy barely survived Pryla. It wouldn't stand a chance against someone wielding the full might of the progenitors." A heavy silence fell over the room, each member of the team grappling with the enormity of the task before them. A chime from the comm broke the stillness. Austin glanced at the incoming message, his eyebrows rising in surprise. "It's from the Council. They're offering me a seat among their ranks in recognition of my service." Zephyr let out a low whistle. "Quite an honor. You'd be the first human to sit on the Council." Austin stared at the message, conflicting emotions warring within him. A part of him was tempted, drawn to the idea of shaping galactic policy, of guiding the course of history. But another part, the part that had driven him to take on impossible odds time and again, knew his true calling lay elsewhere. "I'm going to decline," he said quietly, his voice filled with a calm certainty. "My work is far from over. The progenitor's legacy is still out there waiting to be found, and someone has to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands." He turned to face his team, his expression resolute. "I'm going to find the progenitor's secrets, whatever it takes. I'll scour the farthest reaches of the galaxy, follow every lead, no matter how faint. And I'll make damn sure that their technology is never used to subjugate or harm another living being." The others exchanged glances, their faces mirroring Austin's determination. "We're with you, Austin," Talon said, speaking for all of them. "To the end of the line." Austin felt a swell of pride and gratitude. He had never asked these beings to follow him, to risk their lives for his cause, but they had chosen to stand with him, to fight for something greater than themselves, and that, more than any accolade or title, was the true measure of their worth. As the team prepared to depart, to set out on a new journey into the unknown, Austin paused to reflect on the path that had led him here. The sacrifices he had made, the friends he had lost, the battles he had fought, all of it had shaped him, forged him into the man he was today. And now, as he stood on the brink of a new era, he realized that the true fight for the galaxy's future would be waged not just with weapons and technology, but with the indomitable power of the human spirit, the will to explore, to discover, to stand against the darkness, no matter the cost. Austin turned to the viewport, his gaze drawn to the infinite expanse of stars beyond. Somewhere out there, the secrets of the progenitors awaited, and he would find them, whatever challenges lay ahead. For he was Austin Mason, the man who specialized in the impossible, and the fate of the galaxy rested on his shoulders. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.